There we go, with the credentials there for this 20 kilometers race walk. '61 competitors on our start list. So very much a Far Eastern flavour in the 20k walk, as we just now can go through in country order the competitors. The Australians have got a good contingent. Jared Talent, of course, has got a great record over the years. Possibly at this event now, Dane Bird-Smith is the #1 man. Those are the three Chinese that I've mentioned, Tsai, Chen and Wang. Colombia, good set of walkers for them. Arevalo, the former junior champion. Diego Garcia going for Spain, who's the European junior champion at 10 kilometres walk. Johan Diniz of France not competing through injury this year, so just one Frenchman in the team, Campion. The Italians, usually pretty strong. Giorgio Rubino has got a good international record. There, they're the Japanese. Fujisawa, Suzuki and Takahashi, all under 1:50. And then Kim heading the Korean challenge as well. They too have 3 men. And Mexico with a great tradition in the event. Nava, usually better known as a 50k runner. So Eda Sanchez has the best credentials. Taser of Norway also been around. Dmitrenko of Ukraine was well up there amongst the world best last year. So that's just a taster of some of the names to look out for when they get underway, which will be in 5 minutes or so.
Peter, just giving you a quick rundown there of all the walkers in this particular race. I know for a fact that the Chinese, as Peter said, are taking this very, very seriously indeed. They've been at altitude training. I know that for a fact. My son was up there early in the year, and they were there then. They've been there for 3 months training at altitude. They realise that this is their big chance of a gold medal, and they're taking it very, very seriously indeed.
Where was that, Steve?
Sorry?
Where did they go to at altitude?
Sambaritz. They're at Sambaritz. My son was training up there as well, and he said that they were out there virtually all day, every day. Their trainer was following them on a bicycle. My son is a cyclist, and he was coming past them all the time. And they were out there in the morning, and when he came back from his long ride, they were back still doing their training. So obviously they're very, very serious. And this is their big, big chance of a gold medal.
Well, and they just managed to produce a world record in the women's 20k walk earlier this season as well. So it could be a bold bid for double gold as far as the Chinese are concerned. But they've certainly seemed to dominate race walking in recent years, along with the Russians, of course. Great tradition from both nations. Not too many people in the stadium yet, but we are just coming up to 8:30 local time. I'm sure by the time the eventual winners or medalists get back into this stadium in around about 1 hour, 23, 24 minutes time, if there are any Chinese amongst that top 3, then they'll get an almighty reception. There was a huge echo of applause for the Chinese marathon runners who made their way in at the end of their epic 26.2 mile run yesterday.
It'll be interesting to see how many spectators are actually out there on the course. I assume that the public will have access to it, though I'm not absolutely certain on that.
Chen, Wang and Kai carrying the hopes of a nation on their shoulders.
Well, that can sometimes help, or it can sometimes be a major pressure. But no doubt about it, they have been preparing pretty well. And they look happy enough there at the front, not taking any chances of staying at the back at the start, even though it is a race walk. Lopez, one of the other big contenders, Miguel Angel Lopez of Spain. And there he is, the world record holder, Suzuki. Takahashi, his teammate. Great tradition in all distances in Japan, marathons, walks. Again, they have a real chance of maybe snatching that gold.
Well, the Chinese will do absolutely everything they can to ensure their near neighbours don't rob them of a chance of homegrown gold.
Well, it's not a sprint start, but they're towing the line, aren't they? Here we go. Every single one of those walkers, I think, started their watch timers as the gun went. They know what pace to go, but look at this. The Chinese are not taking any prisoners at all, are they? They're going out very hard indeed.
Setting their stall out right from the very beginning here. This is certainly an early declaration of intent.
It's much similar to the men's 10,000 last night when the Kenyans decided they wanted to go out hard and make a good race of it. I think the Chinese have decided the only way really maybe to take it to the Japanese is to go out hard all the way in these conditions.
Well, it's almost metronomic. Single file.
Well, usually in race walking they take the first lap or so fairly casually. Oh, there's been someone's had a bit of a problem already there over the back straight. I have to wait and see who that was, but obviously having problems with his shoes or something. He's got back in, thankfully, but it's Indian file already. So yes, you can see there is a declaration of intent. And Suzuki, the world record holder there, he is in 5th place, obviously realising that the danger is up ahead of him and he's just got to stay in touch as long as he possibly can. There he is. Easy to spot. Headgear and the sunglasses.
Lopez just tucked in behind the Japanese world record holder.
Well, I wonder if the Chinese have got a method in their effort here, whether someone has to take the pace for the first 5K and then someone else the next 10K and so on. But at the moment, it does definitely look, and you can see now, Suzuki is not taking any chances at all. He's gone right past, I think it is, sorry, can't see the number at the moment, in 4th place. He's gone right past and onto the shoulder of the 3 Chinese walkers.
I mean, just on that first lap, there's now something like 60 metres from the front to the back of the pack, just showing the pace that they're going
That's right.
at.
I think we've been to enough of these World Championships and race walking finals to know that this is really something quite special here. This is, I think, the Chinese answer to a gold medal. They really are trying as best they can, and the difference between, as Peter said, the leader and the back of this race walk is about 100 metres or so now.
This is different pace. We've become accustomed in major races to the Russian method, which is to gradually step up the pace throughout the race from not a slow start exactly, but a slower start, and getting it quicker and quicker and quicker. Well, the Chinese have said, right, we go out hard right from the start. Slightly different tactics, and of course we don't have the Russians here.
Well, that's possibly why they're doing it, but I think they realise still that it's not going to be all their own race. Lopez, Suzuki there, they've realised the danger straight away. They must have known that this was going to happen because they weren't lingering at the back when the Chinese walkers literally shot to the front. They were straight on them. The other factor, obviously, in race walking, when you're sort of say walking at this sort of pace for this sort of distance and for this sort of time, is the technique. They've really got to be careful because as the race progresses, they get tired, and as they get tired, obviously the faults creep into their technique, and that's when the referees around the course will be watching very closely indeed.
Just watching Dane Bird-Smith there. He's now moving towards the head of that chase group, trying to close the gap up ahead to that leading quintet. It's Lopez just off the back of that 5, and Bird-Smith is just trying to move alongside the Mexican in 6th place, realising perhaps that this isn't just a temporary testing of the pace. There he is, the big Australian just on the shoulder of Sanchez. And they are actually closing that gap. It looks as though the 3 Chinese leaders have actually just slowed up a little.
And the first kilometre, 3:56. That's quick.
Yeah, they've gone off hard, but I think they also realise they cannot keep this rhythm going. And quite rightly, the other athletes have moved slowly but surely at a sensible pace back to the leaders. Still, the damage has been done, really. They really have now thrown the gauntlet down.
Maybe there was a little touch of adrenaline there amongst the
big crowd here in the
athletes.
stadium, yeah, and they have been training a long time for this. Even though they look relaxed, you sense there was a little bit of tension there. As you said, Rob, the weight of the country are on their shoulders, in expectation anyway.
So Sanchez Bird Smith and the other of the two classy Japanese athletes have closed the gap on the lead 5. It's still pretty much single file. But a lap and a half ago, that was what, 15, 20 metres? And now they have reattached themselves to the back of this trio.
Well, the Olympic champion Chen now is looking around to see where his teammates are as they slightly move across from the inside on making their way out from the stadium. A little bit of shade, actually, a little bit of shade in the stadium, so I think when they get out onto the 2 kilometre loop, it won't be as nice for them. There's a little bit. There he is. He's just getting the crowd worked up as he goes out. Chen, the Olympic champion, saying, "I'm really here. I'm okay. I'm in good shape." And the crowd enjoyed that, didn't they?
I'll tell you what. I haven't seen that. He's less than. Well, he's about a tenth of the way into the race. That would be like a marathon runner waving to the crowd on his way out.
Oh, and he's enjoying it. It's good to see a bit of enthusiasm, I think. We lack that sometimes in athletics. I quite like the individuals. And Chen obviously enjoying himself at the moment, but it's a long, long way before he reaches the finish line.
That was a big call to do that. It shows you he's seriously fired up for this. There he is, the Olympic champion, just running on the left-hand side of the 3 Chinese athletes. Ethiopian and British flags flying there. But a little moment of exuberance there from Chen, the Olympic champion. Only the 2nd Chinese man to become an athletics Olympic champion, after Liu Zhang, of course, who has so recently retired. And it's Chen who leads what is now a familiar bunched group. So they tested the field a little bit in those first 3 3/4 laps of the track. But now there is a large group back together. Sanchez in there. Lopez towards the left-hand side as we look at it. And just as the marathon runners did yesterday, quite a few of the walkers opting to go under the spray shower. Because even though it isn't as clear today, it is still pretty muggy, especially for any Europeans. So keeping cool and keeping the temperature of the body down, absolutely vital. Even Mo Farah yesterday, in the very early stages of the 10,000, veering off to the right-hand side on the track and covering himself with water. So the conditions, even though it may not look as though it's particularly sunny, it's very, very oppressive here.
Yeah, it's deceptive, it really is. This is I think the hard part of race walking, really. Marathon runners, they can go out onto a course and have a bit of a, well, I wouldn't say a sightseeing trip around Beijing, but the poor walkers, they've got this this 2K loop, which is literally up and down just outside the stadium here. And that really has got to be a tremendous amount of concentration. Nothing breaks up that monotony of those loops, apart from the pain that obviously creeps in during the race. So Chen sweating already, pouring the water over himself, charges behind him. And Wang, who actually won their trials, the 3rd of the Chinese there, just behind, is probably the one maybe their pacemaking for. You don't really know, but he was the winner of the trials, just adjusting his cap slightly. They're going to be sweating, they really are. I don't think they're going to need those caps. At the moment, it doesn't look as if there's much sun on that course out there.
Well, you mentioned Wang, Steve, and he, for me, is the favourite, not least because you mentioned they were up in altitude, and they came fitting in a few race walks in Europe as well, both at shorter distances and at 20k, and overall his record this year has been the top one. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's the one they've identified, but I think he's probably just got that little bit better form as they go through the shower here, rather than the Olympic champion Chen.
I think yes, I think there might be. I mean, it's more than possible they thought of a race plan, and obviously if he is the man that they're favouring, then they will use the other two to try and get the result they need. Well, they're bunching up now. They went through that mister, which is a bit of a godsend, I think, for anybody out there on the course at the moment. Tight bends, as always. We saw this in Beijing. Almost it's the same course. I'm not sure whether it's the same course, but a similar sort of course in the Olympics where they have to really go round these tight bends and back up again. This is all done so that the actual referees and judges can make sure that they're watching the athletes at all times. Difficult to spread the referees around a 20k A to B course, but once they're just going up and down outside the stadium here, the referees, you'll probably see them just there they are, just along the course, just watching, eagle-eyed, and making sure the technique is absolutely perfect for these walkers. And slowly but surely we'll get, I'm sure, one or two identifications that these walkers maybe have fallen foul of one or two of those fairly stringent regulations they have to adhere to.
Still the three Chinese walkers spread across the course. Arvalo coming across there just to hand out a couple of drinks. Sanchez still there for Mexico. And this elevated shot just gives you an indication as to how tightly bunched that leading group are. Bird Smith is still right there at the front. Lopez in that group as well.
Yeah, Baird Smith, there he is in the yellow and green of Australia. He's just won the World Student Games 20k walk. So, yeah, he's a man in form. Whether he's in the sort of form here today to get amongst the medals is going to be a question mark, I think. But he's doing what he has to do at the moment, keeping up. Cheng really is pushing on.
Well, it's a very early stage of the race to try and take it on. We saw a couple of early breaks off the front in the marathon yesterday. The Italians deciding to go early.
Well, straight through the misters yet again. And if you think race walking is slow, just see how quickly that motorbike is going in front of them. It's a lot faster than I'm jogging at the moment, and believe you me, they are really motoring. This is a very fast pace at the moment in the 20k.
I went to a high-altitude training camp in France back in 2007, just in the lead-up to Osaka to the World Championship, having not really experienced much race walking. And I was really surprised when I went running, and it was running rather than jogging, alongside them, just to get an indication and an understanding of how they train and how quick they are. And you're basically talking not too far off 6-minute miles. So if you're a keen amateur runner and you knock out the odd 10k, well, these guys, if you can do 36, 37 minutes for a 10k, you're not a bad club runner, and these fellas wouldn't be too far behind you. It's really, really deceptive. When you see them all together, it may not look as quick as it would if you watch them go past you for real, but anything close to 6-minute miling is not bad running, and that's exceptional walking, and that's what they're doing here.
So Chen looking over his shoulder. Wang's just behind him. Chai, the only Chinese athlete without the cap, is in second place at the moment, and they are pushing on. No question about it. This is a determined effort by the Chinese to secure maybe a medal in these championships. We saw Dong, as Rob said, yesterday winning that silver medal in the women's shot. I think they're looking back now to some of the athletes just at the back of that lead group. Suffering already from this fast pace. Super slow-mo now of Cheng with that water.
I still can't get over him waving to the crowd as he left the stadium.
It was a bit like you this morning when we came in.
Just trying to show some enthusiasm for the poor volunteers standing there in the baking heat all day.
I think another factor in the race walking is an important one, I suppose, is that you've got the ability in the race walk, as opposed to, say, the marathon, to actually keep a keen eye on your competitors. You can actually look across, see where everybody is. In fact, they can see where you are as well, which is a plus and a minus in both counts, I suppose. But you've got that sort of, I suppose, worry if you can see someone pulling away from you all the time, and at the same time you can actually see if you're closing the gap as well. So that 2K loop has its advantages and disadvantages.
Chen just blowing a little bit. quite happy out the front. World record holder Yusuke Suzuki still in that group. Interesting, we were talking on the way in, Steve, about whether a lot of these walkers, so we get a glimpse there of Stano, one of the Italian competitors there. Good couple of performances from their marathon runners yesterday. And we were talking on the way in about how many of these athletes are walkers, perhaps start off as athletes and then decide that their better talents lie in race walking. I've just had a look over the CV of Suzuki, the world record holder. He was third in the World Junior 10,000 metres back in 2006. So he's got pretty good track credentials in his own right, and it's a brilliant base to bring to race walking. If you're a world-class 10,000 metre runner, you've certainly got the engine to translate into the realm of race walking.
Yeah, I don't think it's that easy though, because the technique is something which has got to be learnt, and if you're not adapted to it, then it does become almost impossible, I suppose. Maybe he was picked up by the walking coach in Japan, and from there on in he's had a tremendous success. We don't know really. There's the 4K, 16:05. So, Peter, the pace, I suppose, at the moment?
Well, exactly 4 minutes for each kilometre, of course, gives you a 1 hour 20. And we have got a number of men in the field who are better than that. So they're slightly outside that, but not much. So
in these conditions, though, in these conditions?
Absolutely. So it's a 1:21, and they're quite likely to get quicker over the closing stages.
So, there you go.
Well, he's setting his stall out early here. Ding Chen wants to upgrade from from silver to gold from 2 years ago in Moscow.
Well, as you said, Rob, he's keeps saluting the crowd there. They must enjoy it. Don't forget that if you've got your coaches and you've got your family, they can actually watch you quite a lot, can't they, in the race walk?
Yes, I'm sure he'll have plenty of friends and family around the circuit, as indeed all three of the Chinese athletes will. And still Kai and Wang in that group. Still a sizable number of them. Real shame that Johan Diniz felt he was unable to bring his best here and not quite recovered from injury. More known as a 50k walker. He's been around a long time now, Diniz. And he perhaps would have brought a different dynamic to this race, because he's not afraid to get in amongst it at the front. And we've still got the marathon to come, the 50.
Well, that is the longest race in the Athletic Canada. Many people don't realise that. I think they still think the marathon is the longest race, but it's the 50k. By, what was it, 8 kilometres longer almost, so it's a tough race. Tough race, and they're out there a long time. And in these conditions, we saw how it devastated, really, some of the greatest marathon runners in the men's marathon, and it could have the same effect, perhaps more so, in the 50k walk for men. Takahashi, just watching the race up ahead going on. Chen is taking on as much as he can in terms of fluids, and he's dousing himself down every time he goes past. Not much conversation going on between him and his teammates. They're letting him get away a little bit. There's the world recorder, Suzuki. Lopez just, I think, to the left of him or to the right of him. I'm not sure which angle we got there. There is Lopez with the glasses in the middle of that group, with the yellow and red of the Spanish strip. There's Wang. That's the first time perhaps Wang has hit the front. The cap has come off. There he is on the right of the picture, the Olympic champion. All these Chinese athletes are about to 23, 24, so they're young men, really. They've got a whole future in race walking, and they're already very, very successful. Bird Smith, the big, tall Australian, really dwarfing the other walkers around him. There he is in the yellow and gold of Australia. Sorry, the gold and green, I should say, of Australia. He's in about third or fourth place. He's mixing it at the moment. Australia obviously has got a great tradition as well of race walkers.
And not least for him, of course, because his father, David Smith, was an international top walker for many years.
So obviously doing very well at the moment. Hagen Pohl of Germany now. Just grabbing a bit of bottle from his coach there with the German flag on the feeding stations. There's one of the officials just giving a warning. As you'd expect, with the pace they're walking at the moment, you'd expect technicalities to be a problem. And as the race goes on, these athletes will have to become very aware of that situation. Suzuki just tucking his cap back on a bit harder. Well, Pohl now, the German, is really starting to push it on.
Yes, it's always interesting, isn't it, when someone does push it on like that. They obviously are well aware of who it is. Now, wouldn't want to demean Pohla's talents a little bit, but I don't think the really top men are too worried about him. If it had been one of the elite Chinese or Japanese or something, I think you probably would have seen people go with them.
Well, nonetheless, he's really trying it.
Oh, yes.
He's giving it all he has in these World Championships. Remember, it's $60,000 to win these championships for the first place, 40 I think it is for second and 20 for third, so it could be a big payday for any of these athletes really if they're successful here today.
Yes, the prize money extending down to 8th place.
The Pohl almost using that motorbike there as to pull him through there. Temptation to jump on the back seat must be quite considerable, but there we go. He's actually now got a gap of about 20 or so metres on the others. And as you say, Peter, they obviously know it's a very close-knit community, the race walkers. They know each other almost by name. And I think they know that this man, although he was third in the German Championship, I think he is one to watch, but probably not maybe one to worry about too much. We'll have to wait and see.
One of the interesting things, I mean, the toughness of these race walkers, whereas, let's say, a 10-kilometre runner on the track might only have 3 races in a year or something, quite typically these 20-kilometre race walkers will have 7 or 8 competitive outings at that distance, and probably have some shorter distances as well.
I think that's got a lot to do with it, a bit like swimming, isn't it? The impact level of race walking, not as severe as maybe marathon running or 10K running, where the jolt, the jarring of the body perhaps is more significant. I think swimmers can do so many disciplines in the pool and almost literally come back the next day and do the same thing. And I think it's the same maybe with race walkers. Their technique allows them perhaps to not have the fatigue perhaps of, say, marathon runners or distance runners anyway. Suzuki, back with that small group there of the 3 Chinese out in front as they go through again, one of the misters. Well, Pohl, there he is. He's a former youth and European junior champion. He's 23 now. As I said, he was third in the German 10,000 metres. Best time this year, anyway, of 21:34. So, as Peter said, this sort of pace, it's about his sort of pace, I suppose, or a little bit below his personal best. But having said that, we saw in the men's marathon, really, all the favourites there disappear fairly quickly when Gebre Selassie decided to make it his race. Maybe it's the same thing here with Pohl. Just not doing him a disservice too early.
Oh, it's great to see someone prepared to take on the traditional might and dominance of a nation such as the Chinese, and it's exactly comparable to the marathon yesterday. And Batochir, the Mongolian, who had a crack off the front early on, and then the Italians decided to get in the mix. It's important that athletes don't feel intimidated by the reputation of a nation. And there's our first disqualification, Steve Byung. 3 yellows, and he has gone. And that is going to become a feature here, because although it was pretty cloudy when we woke up this morning, the sun has burnt most of that off. And as the conditions get ever more grueling and the fatigue sets in, that is where it's possible for these world-class race walkers to just lose the finesse of the technique. And that can, as has been the case already today for one athlete, lead to the inevitable disqualifications. And I think the German is just beginning to get reeled in a little bit.
Yes, it looks like that, even with the camera foreshortening. Just looking at the traditions of the event, the Chinese haven't actually had a winner at the 20k walk before. For men, they have had. For women, they've had 6 medalists on the women, including 1 gold. They've had a couple of silvers, in fact. And, of course, very much the dominant nation in World Championships history have been the Russians. 5 gold, 3 silver, 2 bronzes, but they are not represented today while they try and sort out their walking situation. Spain, 1 gold and 4 each of silver and bronze. And the Italians have had 3 wins, and the Mexicans 2 wins. So it would be a new Chinese gold if they were to get there. And of course, Ecuador have 3 golds, and that was the great Jefferson Perez, who probably the greatest 20k walker of at least recent times and possibly ever. And even Steve Ovett agrees with that.
I wouldn't disagree with you, Peter, ever, would I?
Yes, you would.
Well, it looks as if now that they've decided that maybe Paul has been at the front long enough, and they're closing the gap. Chen is asking for water straight away there. I saw that. Chai's teammate grabbed a bottle and he literally shouted across to him, "Can I have some as well?" So it is getting hot, as Rob said out there. The shade that we had by the early morning sort of cloud cover has literally evaporated, leaving these poor walkers out in the heat of the sun at the moment. "27 minutes into the 20k walk for men, and almost from the word go, these 3 Chinese athletes, Cheng, Wang and Chai, have been up front, asserting themselves, making this race very, very hard for everybody right from the word go. There's a great picture in the back there. That's the feeding station. As they go past that, obviously, every time they do a loop. And you can see all their coaches, their teammates lingering there, giving them advice as they come through, letting them know what's going on, who's behind, where they are, what the pace is. So they're getting as much information maybe as some of the Tour de France riders in their race, as opposed to the marathon, which really doesn't get anything at all from word go. Camera crews following them, doing a great job here at the World Championships, keeping us right there. There's Lopez.
Just got a 7 kilometre time, 28:13. So again, still just outside that 1:20 pace. But I think that last kilometre possibly a little quicker with Paul taking it on.
Swedish team giving their, and the Ukrainian team giving their walkers a bit of refreshment there. Paul just being slightly left behind on the inside there as the Chinese keep moving on. Zivanovic, Belarus. Another warning being given to the Irish athlete there, White. So Wright has got to be a bit careful from here on in. Non-stop, isn't it? Water pouring on and drinking, and quite rightly so. As the temperatures creep up, we're talking about 30-degree plus heat here. No wind, and one of the athletes suffering badly. Just trying to find who that is for you. 100 is Sergio Vieira of Portugal. So his days are over in the walk so far. Interesting to note that while this walk is going on, it's also being displayed on the main scoreboard in the main stadium itself, and the crowd have been watching it as much as we have intently, as the Chinese walkers have been out in front all the way. If they can manage to come into the stadium in first place, then the crowd not only will cheer them, but they've been watching them almost from the word go. Peter said Wang, there he is. The man that perhaps is in the better form of the trio of these Chinese athletes. We get a feeling that Cheng has been the one that's been asked to do all the work. And he's helping his teammate there, Wang, as best he can. They must know if they train together, day to day, all day, every day, who's the strongest. They must know that. And they must know that they've got to give that athlete the better chance of winning, I think. It is a team event sometimes, and you need that to produce a result. It's a bit, as I said, a bit like the cycling. If you've got the best man, you try and help him as best you can. And Chen, I think, is doing the job of making sure that the pace is fast enough, that it does enough damage to everybody else, and help Wang and maybe even Chai get the result they need.
And you were talking, Steve, about the crowd in the stadium following intently. Actually, we're also just about to begin in the stadium with our next event here, which is the long jump in the women's heptathlon. I'm not quite sure how much we'll may switch away from the walk at some stage. I suspect the local director probably has the walk as the priority, and fair enough. But
I think we'll see a lot of race walking at these championships, Peter, to be honest. Yes,
yes,
I think.
Absolutely. But, you know, we'll keep you up to date on what's happening in the heptathlon and long jump as well, which is a fascinatingly close competition.
Around the loop. Make sure you don't hit the flowers. Keep the rhythm going. Haven't seen any yellow cards come out yet. We've been watching very thoroughly, haven't we? We haven't seen the yellow cards come out to the lead group. It's usually been the chasers that have been in trouble, trying to keep up with his pace, really. That's the thing. Definitely affects their technique. Yeah. Oop. Well, obviously a bit too much in his mouth at one stage there, and getting rid of it.
Well, certainly these top Chinese men have a very good record when it comes to major events. There are very few disqualifications. You do get some people who obviously push it hard and get disqualified fairly often. Can't say that's true of these top Chinese athletes in this particular race.
Yeah. We just had a great shot there of Suzuki just behind them. There he is, number 76. There he is, just shadowing all the time. Oh, there was a card there, I think. I'm not sure. Maybe I missed that one. I think did Wang get a brief warning there? I'll have to wait and see. It was pretty quick if it was. That'd have been a bit of a shock, wouldn't it, if one of the favourites actually was DQ'd before he even got into the stadium, but you never know. It's happened before.
Yes, and as we've said, it's always more likely to happen when they're really pushing very hard indeed, and at the tail end of races when maybe the concentration levels just decline a little bit.
I think we caught a quick glimpse there of Jared Talent, I think, of Australia, Peter, just right back there. Twice Olympic silver medalist and twice World Championship bronze at the 50K. Obviously, it's not his best event, but he was somewhere there. Maybe he's up there with his teammate Bird Smith. We'll have to wait and see, but obviously a real talent, literally, Jared, and one to watch if he's in that group.
He's been a brilliant ambassador for Australian race walking for such a long time.
Well, I was speaking to one or two of the people following Jared's, I suppose, performances this year, and they said that he wasn't really in form maybe a couple of months ago, but he's been very happy with the way he's been walking since then. So Jared, I think, maybe concentrating on the 50K, but he'd like obviously to do well here in the 20K as well. Lopez, in the yellow and red there, 43. Was that the warning that Wang got? I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. Or was that... no. Simanovic it was.
Well, we're not too far away, Steve, from the halfway stage. And then the race proper will begin to unfold.
Well, I think the race has been unfolding from the word go, really. I mean, the Chinese haven't really let up at all, have they?
But somebody at some stage, you think, may make a definitive break as opposed to just poking their noses out front and then allowing the pack to rejoin.
Fujisawa, I think it is, of Japan, just coming up there as well. I don't think they make breaks like they will do in the running distances. They tend to just keep working hard. And it is the strong men that really win race walking. Tactics do come into it, but it is literally, especially in the 50k anyway.
Oh, a war of attrition.
Well, we always use that, and I think that is perhaps the perfect event to describe it. It really is.
Even in the commentary box.
We do our best. We do our best. We don't drink as much or go through the misters, but we do our best. Well, Rob, actually, you do drink as much as the race walkers, I think. There's a whole host of water bottles up here, and he's not even doing anything apart from doing the commentary.
Oh, you can find yourself getting into these races. You've got to keep the hydration up.
I know, Chai, actually, for the first time, has come to the fore. Wang just behind.
Chai second in the Chinese trials, inside 120.
You get the feeling that Cheng may have done his job. It doesn't look as if he's keeping up with this pace. No, it's... who's that going to?
That may well have been the Canadian.
Yeah, I think it was Thorne, got the warning there.
Well, Chen's just grimacing a little bit there. We'll keep our eye on his body language. Maybe he will pay for that early exuberance in the stadium and those couple of surges in pace. He went off the front just as the German did for a little bit, but Wang and Kai look pretty comfortable at the front at the moment. Chen is still there, but he's not asserting his dominance on the race at the moment as he was doing a couple of kilometers ago. Suzuki was still in that group as well, but just towards the back. Yet another welcome relief from the searing heat there as they go under the spray shower. As Peter was saying, Suzuki set that lightning quick time back in March, but he doesn't have as much experience when it comes to the major championships. You can see him just towards the back of that group. He's got the kind of French Foreign Legion long cloth at the back of his cap. So the world record holder, the new world record holder, is still in that group, but he's at the back.
Just in the blue there, the light blue and the black shorts. Just give you a quick glimpse of some of the other athletes in this group. That's Andreas Choco of Ecuador, the Pan American Games champion at the 50k. He's more of a 50k man, but still there in this pack of about 10 walkers now, starting to sort of ease away. That group behind is starting to find the pace a little bit too hard now and drifting off a little bit. Wang, looks like now he's decided that this is the time to make a move or to keep the pace going. Cheng, as I said, maybe he was the early pacemaker for all these teammates and he's decided that that's enough, he can't do any more, or maybe he's just decided to let the others take a bit of the work for a change. He's certainly Cheng there, just certainly saying something to Kai, just emphasising something to him. He was shaking his hand at him.
Cameras were just focusing in there on Ida Sanchez. He's been around for a long time now, despite being only 29 years of age. His uncle picked up a 50k bronze back in Sydney. Ida himself, third in the World Cup a few years ago.
All the three Japanese are there. Fujisawa, Suzuki, as we know, is there. Takahashi is also there of Japan, so they're running as a team. They're actually doing very well as well.
And an obvious point to make, but we should make it anyway, they will be comfortable in these conditions.
Well, no one's comfortable, but they can perhaps, like most of them, if they've been training in these conditions, adapt to it a little bit better than some. I wouldn't say anybody's comfortable in 30-degree heat out there. I mean, not only is it radiating off the tarmac, but it's obviously beating down on them as well. So almost like a cooker effect for these athletes.
And they've just reached the 10-kilometre point, so halfway, 40 minutes, 21 seconds.
Yeah, so we're walking at about 120, 121. So in the capabilities of most of these walkers at the moment. But the conditions, I think, are going to be significant over the latter part.
Fujisawa, 18th, back in London. He too, a pretty useful 10,000 metre runner and walker. He was 21st in La Coruna earlier this year. That's a race walk with a lot of history and prestige. We haven't necessarily said a huge amount about Fujisawa in comparison to his compatriot, Suzuki, the world record holder, Takahashi, who was in the top 10 of the World Student Games a couple of years ago. But he's confident enough to get inside and get alongside the Chinese athletes.
Just a little note, since you mentioned La Coruna, that's part of the IF Race Walking Challenge, which brings together the top race walks, both like La Coruna, and also incorporates the championship. So whereas the men and the women on the track have the Diamond League, and there's also a separate Hammer Challenge, so the race walkers have a challenge with quite decent prize money as well. Over a series of races, they can score points and then go to a final as well. And La Coruna, Rio Mayor, a number of the spring races in Europe are part of that challenge, and so is this event.
Well, as you pointed out, Peter, the Chinese up at altitude dropped down for that La Coruna event and got 1, 2 and 3. And they've been dipping down, as you say, to a few of the little races in Europe at the time, and obviously doing very well at those. So seeing Chai here, now taking the rhythm up. Chen, there he is, still with the cap on. Wang on the outside there.
Chocho of Ecuador in that group, and Ecuador, Guatemala, some of the Central and South American countries have a massive history when it comes to race walking.
And again, they'll be suited to these conditions as well. So, yep. Lopez, Spain is still there. A bit more water.
Just looking to see if there's any dialogue being exchanged between the Chinese walkers. But now we're into the second half of the race. As you said, Steve, even for those who live and were born at this altitude, this is where it's going to start to hurt. Confirmation once again, Bune of Korea has been disqualified. Perez is on 2.
Well, Perez better watch out, because actually I think he was in that leading group there, so he's got to be a bit careful. His teammate also there. Difficult to actually make out sometimes where the athletes are, because they're walking so close to one another. That's another thing that runners don't tend to do. The walkers tend to walk almost on each other's heels, not giving much space between each other. Whereas the runners, I think, like to, especially the Kenyans anyway, like to space out, give their long stride a bit of room to manoeuvre, as it were.
That was certainly a factor in the 10,000 last night. Mo Farah had his heels clipped a couple of times. The first by Galen Rupp, both were accidental. And then on that cracking last lap, Jeffrey Kipsang Kamworor tripped him up. It was lucky Farah didn't fall to the ground. But as you say, these guys are really adept at walking very close together. And there's a warning for Chen.
Definite warning there, wasn't it?
No doubt there. It was the Olympic champion who has come under the judges' scrutiny, and he now needs to be careful. And that, I suppose, is a different dynamic to your mental makeup when you're taking part in an event like this, because unlike a marathon runner where you've only got, well, I say only, you've got to focus on your opponent and how you feel, and when you make a break and when you take on liquids. The walkers have to do all of that, but they also need to think very carefully about their technique, because if they find themselves on 1 or 2 yellows, it can then compromise how fast they're walking, because they have to ensure that they don't get disqualified.
I promised to perhaps give occasional updates on the women's heptathlon, which is underway. Well, the 2 overnight leaders have just had their first round jumps. There's not been any really big jumps, except Katarina Johnson-Thompson got very close to 7 metres, except she was over the board by about, 3 or 4 centimetres. So no jump for her. And Jessica Ennis-Hill, who is leading, has just started with a 6:15 long jump.
Getting one on the board. I think she had a couple of 6:16s early on this season in her comeback, and then drifted out to 6:30s. So
well, this is a significant event if this is the case. This is Suzuki, the world record holder, pulling out of the race. Wow, big thing there. Just happened while we were talking about the other events going on. Suzuki obviously not feeling well, or just cannot keep up with the rhythm at the moment. And I think the Chinese will be made aware of that. Their coaches will say that they're doing exactly what they wanted to do, which is to really take the race to the other athletes and make sure that they suffer.
Well, he was at the back of that leading group, but still in touch. Just watching, they are talking to each other, Chen and Chai, and I wonder whether they are exchanging the information that the world record holder does appear to have gone. Well, we did make the point at the beginning that he didn't have as much race experience, even though he did set that scorching time back in March. Not as much major championship experience as the Chinese, but that is significant if it is the case. We'll watch out just to see if for some reason he decides to carry on, but it certainly looked from the body language of the ISO that we saw there on the replay as though his race and his campaign for World Championship glory was over.
Another one we've just picked out there in that small group at the front there is Aida Avaval of Colombian record holder at 20k. His best performance is around that 1 hour 20. He's just at the back there. You can't really, they've changed the angle shot there, but he's just at the back. There he is in the black strip, as it were, with the white cap.
So we have the 3 Chinese athletes. We have Ecuador, Colombia, Spain, and 1 Japanese.
That was a warning, I think, for the Japanese.
That was for Takahashi.
Yeah. So there are all of these getting warned.
Haven't mentioned the Spaniard for a while. He's been quietly going about his business in that front group. And we do have a little bit of a breakaway here.
It's Wang decided to push it on. And as Peter said, this is the man in form. And you get the feeling that he was just biding his time while the other 2 of these Chinese teammates did a lot of the work for him. And this is a significant break, it really is. He looks very comfortable. I think he's the man in form.
And he's up the pace, Steve. That's 3:49. Most of these kilometres have been round about 4 minutes.
And it just goes to show how fast he's actually walking at the moment. He's going past one of the other athletes there, lapping them, in fact, with the speed of, that he's got at the moment. And he's literally pulling away every stride from the rest of the athletes. This is definitely a gold medal performance if he can keep this going with. And then, of course, there's always the question mark that he makes sure that he keeps his technique in check while he's walking this fast. That's the problem. You can get caught when you're tiring because your technique fails, but you can also get caught if you're trying to walk too fast. So either ends of the scale there is a problem.
And just looking at that chase group, Kai and Chen are leading the battle to close down their compatriot.
Choco is also there, Lopez is there.
But they are beginning to stretch out there, that chase group. I think the Japanese athlete, Fujisawa, had been dropped, or was certainly lost a couple of metres at the very least. So Wang's injection of pace has had the desired effect. He's out front, he's got the lead, and what was a chase group or lead group of around 5 or 6 has just begun to be whittled down. This, no doubt about it, is his bid for World Championship glory. This isn't just an exploratory stretch of the legs just to see what the others are doing. This is his tactic to try and walk the sting out of Kai and Chen and get himself the gold medal. And what a moment it would be for him. Just glancing around the stadium here where our commentary position is, it is beginning to fill up here, but we do have to clarify there's still a long way to go. Chocho's there, so too Lopez, but the Japanese athlete has definitely been dropped there. And is that lead growing a little bit?
Yeah, it is. There's no question about that. He's obviously decided that he's feeling good. He's making a move. And it's a significant one, it is. They're checking it. I mean, when you get out like this in front, you are alone, and that means that you're really under the microscope of the judges. Whereas in a tight group, the walkers like to be in a tight group because it does have a little bit of confusion for the judges. They can't look at it that accurately. Whereas this man now, walking fast, coming past one of the Slovenian athletes there. I can't see. I think it's
Kushmin.
Yeah, Kushmin who is.
But after a series of kilometres just outside 4 minutes, to suddenly up it to 3:49, that is a very significant change of tempo, isn't it?
It certainly is, and it's doing the damage. Most of the others, though, in that group of four behind, have just kept their rhythm as it is. They're quite happy, I think, suffering or otherwise, to stay where they are.
And that's a quartet. That chase quartet there is real quality. Chen, the Olympic champion, Kai, who was second in the Chinese trials, Andreas Chocho, the tiny Ecuadorian, he's the Pan American champion after a great walk in Toronto, and Lopez, the Spanish European champion. So he's got some real top quality trying to chase him down, but at the moment the momentum and the lead is very definitely with Shen Wang. Bronze medal 3 years ago in London, and he's on his way, he hopes, to upgrading to gold here on home turf. And no Chinese walker has ever won the men's 20K in the World Championship.
I think Peter checked that earlier, and I think, you know, you've doubly emphasised the fact this is a significant event for the Chinese if they win this. And to be absolutely honest, the way he's walking at the moment, I can't see him obviously being caught by the walkers. His main problem, I think, is whether the judges will actually decide that he's okay coming into the stadium or if he has problems just before that.
Well, he still has that advantage. But that chase group contains Miguel Angel Lopez, European champion, bronze medalist in Moscow 2 years ago. And the other significant fact there, one of the Chinese walkers there has had to stop. Now, he's clearly not feeling well.
Well, that's Kai, and he's suffering. Dehydrated, and I think the stomach is giving him problems. And that's a major blow for the Chinese, because he was up there maybe for another medal. Well, the cameraman has slowed right down.
That's a real shame.
That's a real shame, but I think that just goes to show what it's like out there. All of a sudden, you can just get hit by the dehydration. You can keep pouring water in, but eventually it doesn't work. It actually works against you.
And meanwhile, Wang, 3:53 kilometre.
So he's piling it on. He hasn't stopped, has he really, Wang? But as I say, he's gone. The gold medal really is in his pocket if he just keeps its rhythm going. I think the others are suffering badly. We just saw Kai almost reach as his stomach gave way there, and he's in a bad way. Let's hope he can keep going. Lopez, though, has obviously seized that opportunity and has started to push on. So the silver medal at the moment is in Lopez's hands. Choco just behind him. And then Cheng, you can just see him. There he is, the early leader in the race. Maybe at the moment suffering as much as the others, really. Kai is coming back now. Look at him. Good on him. He's actually got himself back. And he was really, really in problems there for a few seconds.
Well, it looked as though he was going to have to stop, but the other Chinese walkers finding problems on home territory. Well, what a great walk this is turning out to be so far for Lopez. A great major championship performer. He was only 12 seconds behind Chen, who took the silver 2 years ago in pretty hot conditions in Moscow, although it was dry heat rather than this humidity. But the Spaniard is going really well at the moment.
And this is his preferred style. He likes to come through in the second half of the race, and he's doing just that here.
Wang just needs to watch this technique as Steve said, he's out on his own, as he has been for a few kilometres now, as a result of suddenly upping the pace from 4 minutes to 3:49, as we just get a replay there of Zaylin Kai's problems. The last time we saw Kai, he had in fact begun to get back into his rhythm, and in fact had closed the gap on Ding Chen, the Olympic champion, who doesn't look as though he's going to be in the mix for the medals at the moment, unless he has a surge in form. And we still have the tiny Ecuadorian Andreas Chocho in the hunt for a podium finish as well. But real drama in the closing stages of the men's race walk. Wang's attempt at gold
still going on. He's still got about 18 minutes or so of this race walk to go, so we mustn't really say he's going to do it. But Lopez, actually, if anything, I think he's actually coming through, Peter. You're right. I think he's actually maybe surging a bit here. So this is quite an interesting race going on. We thought that Wang was going away, but to Lopez, I think has been spurred on, even though the pace is still pretty hard.
Well, I wonder whether he's closing the gap. Again, just looking back down, there hasn't been a Spanish winner of this race. It's 1993, Valenti Massani.
Well, he might be closing a little bit, but the 3:53 pace is being maintained by Wang.
No, if that is the case, then Lopez is even walking, I should say, a lot faster. There he is. Look at there. He's just behind the motorbike there. He's definitely
closing the gap.
I think he got spurred on, didn't he, when when I think it was Kai just suffered. I think he thought, well, this is my chance of a silver, but I think by doing that, he's actually now starting to pull himself back to a possible gold.
And actually, what's interesting there is the position of one of the television cameras means that if Wang happened to look over his shoulder, he may not actually see the Spaniard, although, of course, the loop turns give him an opportunity.
This is what I said earlier. You'll always see... There he is, though. Look there, the shadow is coming through. You'll always see your competitors one way or another. You can't avoid it, and they'll always see you.
Now, this will be fascinating. If he manages to close the gap, again, it's another test of the technique.
Another athlete drops out of the walk. They're literally falling now like 9 pins. It's the heat, it's the conditions, and it's also the pace.
And that's Chocho of Ecuador, who was right in the hunt for a medal. He's been disqualified. A real shame for the South American. Pan American champion at 50K. And his attempt at a World Championship medal has been brought to a close, and that just emphasises they've got to maintain their focus on their technique.
I think we'll see this here. This is, we won't see it actually, they cut back. Well, the gap now is about, what, 15, maybe 20 metres between these two, Wang and Lopez.
He surely is going to draw level, and then we'll be in for a really interesting
Well, there it is.
climax.
That's Choco's disqualification. Yeah, heartbreaking, really, for any athlete. I don't think it's possible in any other distance, apart from obviously the other walks, to actually be taken out of a race, even though you're trying your best. It is quite sad.
He did look as though he was in tears, actually, towards the end there.
Not quite the same, but there's drama in the walk, obviously, and drama in the stadium as well, because Katrina Johnson-Thompson's had another huge long jump, no jump. 2 no jumps for the athlete lying in second place, and 2 very big jumps as well, and both by about 3 centimetres.
Well, she's going to have to do what she did in the high jump, where she took 3 attempts at her opening height at 180. She's living dangerously, the prodigious young British talent.
Okay, back to the race walk, and this is getting quite exciting. Wang has done all he can. The Chinese have done all they can. They've taken the pace up. Cheng, Chai have done all they can for this man who was probably their best athlete on the day, and he's done all he can. He went off hard and he kept it going. But the Spaniard, Lopez, has resisted. And he's closing all too slowly, but he is closing.
And he will be aware of that, Wang. He will know. If the camera just pans out, you'll get a glimpse. And there you can see there are a number of athletes. If you just started to tune in, it's a repetitive 2K circuit. So you're watching quite a few athletes who have been lapped. But as Wang comes round the corner now, Lopez is within, what, 5 or 6 metres? And the Chinese athlete knows that the gauntlet has been laid on. And you could argue, Steve, that the Spaniard will be feeling fresher because his increase in pace has been more gradual. He wasn't involved with Wang when Wang went off the front. Wang started knocking in 3:49s. He knows the Spaniard is fresh, and surely psychologically the advantage is now with the Spaniard.
Well, it's a hard race one way or the other. Wang has decided quite rightly to keep taking on water. Lopez, though, has missed that feeding station. Wang has not resisted yet. He's not giving in. He's still walking. Lopez, these two are going to have a battle because Lopez has closed the gap, but he's grimacing slightly. These two are hurting. They really are. Now it's a battle of the minds as well as the body. It really is, because Wang, I don't think, is going to give in. He knows he's got to try and win this gold medal for China. Lopez, on the other hand, has had to really work really, really hard to close that gap. And has that taken too much out of him? We saw that, didn't we, in the marathon, where Sergei tried to catch up. And when he did try and catch up, he just didn't have any more in his legs to go past. And that might be the case with Lopez at the moment. Wait and see. Kai is back in good. I like to see him back in the race walk after that bit of an upset he had earlier in the proceedings where his stomach gave way.
Well, the battle for the bronze goes on without Andreas Chocho, the Ecuadorian, who was in third, who's been disqualified. But this is a really fascinating climax in prospect now. What a prize for Wang if he is to enter this stadium and collect China's first gold medal. But this race is far from over, because as a result of so far having judged his pacing beautifully, Miguel Angel Lopez, the bronze medalist from 2 years ago, is in second place, and he's got his eye on spoiling the Chinese party, just as Christina Schwanitz did in the women's shot put last night to deny Gong.
Well, Wang is doing a good job here. I mean, it must be demoralising if Lopez has caught him, thinking that he's going to go past, and Wang looked across and said, no, you're not going to go past that easily. I'm still got something in my legs. And now he's pushing again, which means that Lopez has got to ask the question yet again, can I keep going? Can I just hold this man for another 10, 15 minutes?
Well, more like 10 minutes. The pace is probably going to be under 120.
So they are picking it up. The second half has been a negative split, hasn't it? The second half of the race walk has been faster than the first. And Wang is not giving ground.
This time Lopez does go for a drink, quite sensibly, you suspect. And having closed the gap, Wang has just decided that he's got to keep the momentum going. It hasn't been a case, as you indicated, of Lopez sweeping past and Wang having to hang on. He's closed the gap just as Sergei did on Gabri Selassie, the Eritrean Gabri Selassie, the teenager who won the marathon yesterday. And maybe it has taken a lot out of Lopez to close this gap, but it might just come down to who wants it the most now. What a prize awaits Zheng Wang if he is to hang on here and produce a moment of history for Chinese athletics and Chinese race walking. But Lopez is still there, like a spectre of doom, like a shadow, waiting to pounce on Wang's ambition for gold and for glory. It's too close to call at this stage.
It is almost on his heels, isn't he? Must sense it. They're now waiting, I think. They know now that it'll be senseless, really, maybe to try too hard too early. Lopez has maybe taken a little bit of a breather there, if you can say that. Wang's looking across at him, so thinking, what's going on? But maybe Lopez just held back a little bit there, got himself a little bit of a breather before he's decided to move on. But Wang, nope, is not giving ground.
Still a reasonably good pace. It's been consistent, hasn't it? 3:55, so they're still knocking out the sub 4 minute kilometres. Well, imagine the noise, Steve, if they enter the stadium together. I'm sure the crowd would give Wang a couple of seconds.
Oh, they're panning back to Benjamin Thorne of Canada. Not sure where he is in the actual positions, because these two athletes are a long, long way ahead of anybody behind. Camera's not really panning back that far at the moment, so we'll try and keep you up to date who's in the bronze medal position. But these two at the moment are having a battle royal up at front.
Well, Ben Thorne has been having a good walk. We did see him getting warned by one of the judges. Second in the World Student Games this year. 20th in the 20K World Championship back in Moscow. So if the Canadian athletes in with a shout of a bronze. That's a great performance. But we also saw that Zaylin Kai had got back into his rhythm again after stopping to be ill round one of the turns. But meanwhile, we'll wrap up the bronze when we have an opportunity, because this battle for gold is still as absorbing as it was a couple of moments ago when Lopez closed the gap, and still Wang is unwilling to let the Spaniard pass.
Well, it's a psychological battle, isn't it, really? If you give ground, maybe you think you've given up. I don't think Wang wants to do any of that, really. The gap of about 2 meters or so isn't really significant, although in a race walk, it's a lot longer, isn't it? Or the shorter the distance means that it is a bit longer than you would get on the track. Shorter than you would get on the track, but the actual effort to close that gap is the same. Lopez just keeps coming over to the left of Wang, doesn't he? Just letting him know that he's still there. Doesn't want to walk behind him. He just wants to walk in a position where he can see him. Wang, I think, is hurting. There's no question about it. Look at his actual face, and his shoulders are swaying a little bit.
Looks as though Lopez has gone past him as they hear the bell. It's been 18 circuits, and Lopez is really going for this. You get a better glimpse with that side-on view as to how fast they are actually walking. Lopez is glancing over, and he's taken the lead. Now, is this significant? Has he decided he doesn't want this to come down to a burn-up towards the stadium? And this is his definitive bid for World Championship glory. There hasn't been a Spaniard on top of the podium in this event for 22 years. Lopez, the bronze medalist from 2 years ago, may well have judged this pace beautifully.
Well, as Peter said, he likes to come over the last half of the race in most of his endeavours so far, and he's doing just that now. Wang, I think, may have conceded after all that effort he put in. I thought he had it in the bag, but to Lopez, came from nowhere, pulled himself back, and just waited a little while he got his breath back, I think, almost. Just waited behind Wang till he heard that bell, and then he's decided to go.
Well, he was in that lead pack when the Chinese trio were dominating, just tucking in. We were talking about the world record holder, Yusuke Suzuki, who looks as though he's dropped out. We were talking about the exploits of Ding Shen waving to the crowd. And Lopez just got through the first half of the race, let the Chinese burn themselves out, and he could well have produced the performance of his life here. I think that might have been a little thumbs up. Nice cheer of support from his coaching staff. He looks strong, Lopez. The arms are pumping nicely, and he knows with every foot that goes forward, he is giving himself an ever greater opportunity of hanging on, because Wang must be feeling totally demoralised now. For so long, he resisted Lopez going past him after the Spaniard had closed the gap, but when he went, it was absolutely definitive. I don't think there's a way back here for Zhen Wang.
No, the gap is widening with each stride, really. Lopez knows, I think, when he heard the bell that he had it in the bag, and he just almost increased his stride significantly in that sort of 200, 300 metre period and pulled a gap away. And as you say, I think Wang conceded at that point.
Well, his job now is just to focus on his rhythm and his technique and make sure he hangs on to second place to match the achievements of Gong last night in the stadium.
Well, as you say, this will be a fantastic performance for Spain, but he's the European champion, this man. 5th at the Olympics at 20k, and then the bronze in Moscow in 2013, and this will be his best performance by far in his career.
I thought for a moment there he was going to pick up the Spanish flag. They were holding it out for him. That's a little bit too early.
I think
with about a kilometre to go.
Well, he'll probably drape himself with it on his lap of honour, and maybe he'll enjoy that pretty soon, because he's not far now before he comes back into the stadium. As Peter said, it's closing in on the 120, just under, and he knows he's got it. Yep, he's signalling to the camera crew, I think, and to those fans back home. Wang, there he is. He did his best. I think he's still walking, and he's walking hard, but he's not going to get the gold. He'll get the silver.
But he just needs, unlike the marathon runners who can celebrate, of course, he's right to be exuberant, and it's great to see a champion expressing themselves. But in amongst all the waving and the I'm number one, he does need to maintain his focus on his technique as he now goes into the shadow of the stadium. And in a few seconds' time, he will emerge. He'll get a cheer, but not quite as big a cheer as that which will greet Zhen Wang when he comes into the stadium in second place.
Well, they've watched this walk, haven't they? For the last hour and 20 minutes, all the spectators in the stadium, they've been waiting in anticipation of a gold medal for China. But it looks as if it's going to be this man now. Lopez of Spain. What a walk, really. He's come back from behind. He's pushed all the way. The crowd are enjoying it. The arms go aloft. Wang is just behind, just coming into the stadium now. There he is. He's done the best he can, this man, and all he has to do now is accept the applause of the crowd.
And listen to that reception for Zhen Wang. Thoroughly deserved. But so too the plaudits for Miguel Angel Lopez. He's been around a long time. Yes, he's taken a European gold, and yes, he's taken a World Championship bronze, but this is the biggest moment of his career by some margin. Miguel Angel Lopez is the world champion, well inside 1 hour 20, and that was a beautifully judged piece of race walking. Zhen Wang, no disgrace with silver for him.
Marvellous performance.
Adding to his Olympic bronze. Zhen Wang will be the toast of China. He gave it absolutely everything. Not quite enough for gold, but that was a brilliant, brilliant silver medal.
Yeah, marvellous performance from Wang, really, at the end of the day.
And look at Thorne. Ben Thorne has produced the best 1 hour and 20 minutes of his career. Well, 20th 2 years ago, and he's found himself on the podium.
Well, great performance from all those athletes, really. Lopez, though, fantastic, really. He timed it absolutely to perfection. When the Chinese did everything they had to try and grab their gold medal here at Beijing, Lopez denied that, really, by a masterful piece of walking. He really was. Well, Wang will get the applause of the crowd. He did everything he had to, really. Disappointment maybe for the silver, but a great performance nevertheless. He would have loved to have got the gold. You can see his disappointment. They have trained so hard. Here comes Kai. Wow, what a race he had. He was walking well, suffered badly, but then came back to finish. Good performance. That's a real test of character, it was. Lopez, I don't think, can quite believe it. Wang, exhausted and maybe disappointed, but I think he'll come to terms with the fact at the end of the day that that was a great walk. He did all he could. Hours and hours and hours, days and days and days out on the road. Navallo of Colombia there with the flag. He must have grabbed that just as he came into the stadium doing his Superman bit, but also walked very well indeed.
Huge congratulations to Ben Thorne on the podium and with a national record as well. Inside 1 hour 20.
First ever medal for Canada at the event.
This has been a good standard, actually, Steve. Just looking at the clock, it's still inside 1 hour 22, and in these conditions, that is not bad at all.
Well, they're coming in. There's some tired Ben there. They really are. And Ben Thorne just being congratulated by his teammates who are doing very well here, actually. They're coming through in the middle order, so that's a good performance from the Canadians, which is good to see another country coming to the fore in race walking.
With your Australian interest too, Steve, Dane Bird-Smith has just come in 8th.
Yeah, there he is.
1:20.05.
Yep, the big man kept it going. That's good. I saw Jared Talent being lapped there at one stage, though, and I think maybe his main performance will probably be in the 50K later in the program here at the World Championships.
All credit to Zhen Wang. He had a really good go, hitting the front with 7 kilometres remaining, pushing the pace up from around 4 to 3:49. He can't have any regrets at all, the Chinese athlete. He did everything he could.
Ben Thorne enjoying the moment.
Lopez, not only the gold medal, but a personal best as well. What a context in which to set your fastest ever time.
And you said lots of other good times. Just another man across the line in 11th place, Libugan Shangi. He's done a South African record of 1:21.43.
Well done. Well, if you're going to produce your best performance, do it at the World Championships. And that's great from a lot of these athletes. It really is. There's Martin. Lopez's teammate, they've done well. They've got to be pleased with that. Their coach, as I said, these athletes, walkers, train for hours on end every day. It's not a simple training technique for these. In terms of time, they're probably out there longer than most other athletes doing their efforts every day. And they get the reward, though. That's good. I think this is Jared Talent coming now from Australia there in the yellow and gold. Sorry, I keep saying that, the green and gold. Prolific 50k walker, Jared. He's almost using this, I think, as a bit of a warm-up. Doesn't seem to be too troubled at all. There he is. Getting used to the conditions, maybe. Well, it's good to see that Wang is celebrating, really. There was that initial disappointment, I think. But having the silver medal, really, in front of your home crowd can't be too bad, can it, really?
Yeah, as we watch the rest of the walkers come across the line, Wang is jogging round on a lap of honour with Ben Thorne just behind him. Great memories for the Chinese athlete, and what a moment for him when he came into the stadium. There was a massive roar when the Chinese crowd saw him emerge from the shadow of the tunnel. A great moment for him, and a wonderful moment for the Spanish race walking fraternity. But there is Wang, soaking up the applause, and deservedly so.
Well, Lopez can't get enough of it, really. He's standing around there, enjoying it, waiting for all the other walkers to come in, and they're congratulating him. It's his moment in the sun, literally. There is still a bit of sun down there on the track. Wang has gone round the back straight. The athlete's still coming in. It's been a long day for some of these out there. Some of them haven't even made it back, really. They've been pulled out through disqualification or suffering. This is the moment, really, when Lopez, I think, came out. Here it is. The arm goes aloft. Comes out into the Olympic Stadium here at the Bird's Nest. There's his compatriot, I think, taking part in the shot. Congratulating him. Yep, there it is. Wow. He'll remember that for the rest of his life. He really will. Listen to the crowd as he goes through. As I said, it was a masterful walk. He did everything right. Took it easy, waited his time, came through when he had to, waited again, and then just pushed on. Strength and patience, great combination.
Well, Ben Thorne deserves a bit of a party tonight, wherever that may be in Beijing.
Well, I think he gets 20,000 too, so he'll buy the first round, I hope, after that. Another shot of Lopez coming in. Well, I'm sure that Lopez will be playing this over and over again when he gets back home and enjoying every moment of it, same as we did, really.
Well, we were talking about the Chinese walkers before it began, but it's all about the Spaniard here after the race. As you said, it was masterful, Steve. A beautiful piece of pace judgment. And Lopez will stand atop the podium. The first time a Spaniard will have done that for
Wang.
22 years.
Wang being interviewed now by the media. So that's 2 silvers so far for China in these championships. Dong yesterday in the shot put for the women, and Wang today in the 20k walk.
And it's good to see him celebrating, because obviously he was so close to a piece of history for China on home soil, but he did nothing wrong there. He had a great race. He just wasn't quite good enough for gold, so he should be really proud of that silver. Confirmation, Miguel Angel Lopez is the new world champion. Zhen Wang, no disgrace in second place for him, and a brilliant bronze and national record for Ben Thorpe, the Canadian.